We will be providing a quick overview kind of our programs, a background on what Lions Quest Canada is and who we are, information about our main activities, how specifically the Lions family can help and be involved, and then some next steps to challenge you to go along the way. Give me 1 second. There we go. So welcome. Thank you for taking your time out of today to be with us. As I said, we will be going through the background about Lions Quest, information on who and what we are, how specifically you can help as part of the Lions family. So starting off with our mission, and that's a bit of a mouthful. Our mission is to provide leadership knowledge and resources to develop capable young Canadians of strong character. And as I said, it is a mouthful, but it does sum up exactly what Lions Quest Canada is all about. What we're really trying to do is make a positive difference in the lives of kids where they live, learn, work, and play. So to simplify that a little bit, what does that really mean? Well, if we say it takes a village to raise a child, Lions Quest Canada is equipping the villagers. So we're a child and youth development organization that doesn't actually work directly with the children and youth. We work with the adults who surround those children and youth, and by doing that, we can have a far bigger impact. Each adult in our world touches so many in their everyday lives that by training one adult, we can reach hundreds and in some cases thousands of kids. So instead of working directly one-on-one with children and youth, we train the village. We work with the village and equip them with their tools. Over our 30-year history, we have in schools reached over 50,000 educators with our school-based programs in about 4,000 schools in virtually every province and territory. And our Lions Quest school-based programs are recognized worldwide as one of the best, if not the best, in the world, most recently by the United Nations. So how do we do that? Some of the other things we've done, we've reached out to national gatherings and held 10 conferences or gatherings across the country where we've pulled together various people working with children and youth. We've held 105 community-based workshops, small group workshops, half-day evening sessions. In addition, we've trained about 1,200 people in a more in-depth 2-day workshop to really build local community capacity to support positive youth development. And we've also held 6 unique specialized training sessions for police services, RCMP, and municipal services across the country. Really, that's just a lot of numbers. So what do all those numbers mean? And I just want to share a story, and some of you, I recognize your names on the line, have certainly heard this story, but it really brings it home for me. And it started when my son was in grade 1, and he is now 23 years old. So this was obviously a few years ago. And he came home from school and said, "Mom, we're having reading buddies at school." And of course, an engaged parent, I thought, this is wonderful. Instilling the sense of literacy and love of reading for your 6-year-old it's certainly a good thing to do. And he said, "I'm super excited because I already know my reading buddy." So I thought through all of the grade 6 kids that were in our neighborhood, and I thought, who could his reading buddy be? And he said, "It's Brody." And the mama bear in me came out a little bit, and I panicked a bit, but I kept those thoughts to myself, and because Brody was that kid, not necessarily the one you wanted as a good influence on your 6-year-old or any influence on your 6-year-old. And I said, "Sam, keep me posted on reading buddy time. I want to hear about what happens." So each week he would come home and be excited it was reading buddy day. And I would hear consistently messages like, "Brody's the best reading buddy. Brody picks books I like to read and are interesting. He lets me pick the books. He lets me read some of the words. He is the best reading buddy. I'm so lucky to have Brody as my reading buddy." So I would hear this all the time. And one day I was out at the front of my house and Brody came strolling down the sidewalk, and I called out to him and said, "Hey, Brody." And he turned and looked with a look I will never forget to this day. And it was a look of like, what the heck did I do now? I'm just walking down the street. And all of a sudden, I realized that the only time the adults in our neighborhood talked to Brody was when he was doing something wrong. And that was frequent, I will say. But I said to him, Brody, thanks for being Sam's reading buddy because he thinks you're the best reading buddy in the school. Brody's posture changed. He stood taller. His face lit up. To this day, and obviously that was 17 years ago, to this day, it has changed that relationship. So when I see him drive down the street in an excessive speed, I can wave, he slows down. When I hear about some of his behaviors that may not be the most positive in the neighborhood, I can remind people, yes, but he was Sam's reading buddy and was the best reading buddy. So it's not ignoring those negative behaviors, but it's changing the lens and putting the focus on some of the positive behaviors and reinforcing those. And it was really kind of the moment that I went, there's so many things we as people in our communities, people in our families can do to make a positive influence on kids. And it really comes down to 2 shifts. And we spend a lot of time fixing problems. We want to fix this problem and we want to fix the bullying problem. We want to fix the drug problem. But in reality, we can fix those problems if we focus instead on promoting young people's strengths and abilities. And it's moving beyond programs to relationships. I mentioned our Lions Quest school-based programs were one of the best programs, if not the best in the world, but they are only as good as the teacher or the educator or the adult who is delivering that program and their relationship with those students or young people. It's all about relationships first, and the programs are the tool to make good things happen. So that was just a bit of a background and a setup, but the big questions and what our time together here today is about is answering these questions. What is Lions Quest anyway? I keep hearing about it at my Lions Club or Lioness meeting. I keep hearing about it in emails, but I don't really know what it is, and I don't really know why it's important. Our primary activities, and this is a little bit different around the world for different Lions Quest offices, but in Canada, we focus on these primary activities. First and foremost, our school-based programs, our training and workshops and resources to deliver social emotional learning in the school. Then we have extended that out to do community-based workshops because schools don't have issues in the summertime. Schools aren't having issues right now when students aren't in the school classroom. It's a community issue. If we're saying it takes a village, it really is a village. We also can't do all of those community-based outreach all by ourselves, all of that work. So we've designed a training session to build that community capacity. So we have other adults in those neighborhoods, in those youth serving organizations who can do that type of training. We've done some customized training for police services and others, and then we do some resource distribution. So that's another part of equipping the villagers. We give them some tools directly that don't require any training. So we'll talk first about our school-based programs because that is absolutely at the core of what we do. And I'm just going to launch another poll here to ask a quick question, and some of you have been around for a while. Again, you can answer as many of these pieces as you want. It's not just one choice. So another quick question for you. Lions Quest school-based programs can be described as, and pick any or all of those that you would like. So I'll give it about another 10 seconds or so for voting. So there we have it, and I could post this up, but I'll keep it simple and just let you know. 100% of those who replied to the poll indicated it was social emotional learning. Some of you who are new to Lions Quest may have been tipped off because I used that language already. About 3/4 of you indicated character education, about 70% bullying prevention, and a little over half indicated student wellness and drug prevention. The reality is that Lions Quest programs actually support all of those things. So it's really about the bigger picture of the development of healthy and responsible young people. Absolutely about social emotional learning, character development, prevention programs, and positive behavior. So staying away from the negative behaviors like drug use and bullying, among others. That opportunity to provide service and an asset or a strength-based approach. This is language. If you're in an education system out in the school world, you will hear any of this different language being spoken about. Depends on the province, depends on the school district, and sometimes depends on the school as to what language they are using. But all of that encompasses what Lions Quest programs are about. For those who are brand new to Lions Quest, or as a refresher for those who have been around for a while, it's about social emotional learning. And this model and language is relatively new, but it's what Lions Quest has been doing for 30 years. So the research has been reformatted and repackaged to pull it under the model of social emotional learning from an organization on an international level called CASEL is the leading organization around this. We have a lot of Canadian groups and universities who are doing a lot of research in this area too. But it's about self-management and self-awareness, those personal skills. It's about the social skills, social awareness and relationship skills. And then it's about putting those skills into practice through responsible decision making. So each one of those 5 bigger areas has a whole lot of subsets underneath it. Every curriculum document in Canada says teachers or students will apply their decision-making skills. I have yet to find a curriculum document, although we're starting to see a change, that says students will learn decision-making skills. So in order to apply them, we actually have to learn them, and that's where we start off. So when social emotional learning is in place, this is the why. This is why Lions Quest is so important. Research and science have clearly shown that when students develop their social emotional learning skills or SEL, obviously they gain those skills if we focus time on them. They have improved attitudes about themselves, others, and their school. Their behavior improves, and because their behavior improves, their marks go up. Teachers can spend more time focusing on the academics and on those areas of their education and less time on behavior management. And I'm sure many of us have seen the jokes and the memes going around social media right now about parents who are now homeschooling their children and how much appreciation they have gained for classroom teachers and what they deal with. And the parents only have, you know, a couple of kids in their house as opposed to 25 or 30 kids in a classroom. So I think it has given a new appreciation for that piece. But we need to focus deliberately on building those skills in order to make that happen. The other result is not only the improvement in the positives, but there are reduced risks for failure. So fewer behavior issues and conduct problems, less emotional distress or mental wellness issues. We see reduced substance abuse, reduced violence and bullying activity. We see young people valuing diversity. We see them exhibiting leadership. So many positive gains and significantly reduced risks for failure. When our school-based programs are implemented, one of the first pieces we hear back from principals or school administrators is that the lineup outside their office for discipline issues has all but disappeared. And that said something about the value of the program. So what is the program? We have Skills for Growing, which is the early learning or kindergarten to grade 5 level. Skills for Adolescence is for grade 6 to 8, and Skills for Action is our secondary level program. So looking a little more specifically into what's in the program, For those who are new to it, you may frequently hear about lesson plans or curriculum, the actual what the teacher is delivering in the classroom, but there are other key elements as well. Service learning, training, positive school climate, family involvement, and community involvement. So let's look first at the curriculum piece. There are 6 program units from early learning through grade 8. This is consistent. So we start off building that learning community, getting to know our classmates' names, establishing the rules for the classroom. Then we move on to those personal skills, going back to what we talked about with social emotional learning framework, their social skills, then spending some time deliberately on health and prevention. So that's where we talk about in early learning grade 1, the substances they may find under the kitchen sink or in the medicine cabinet. And as we get to the older grades, we're talking about alcohol, tobacco, other drugs. Unit 5 is the leadership and service, where the students are involved in a service learning project of their choosing in the community. And then we wrap up and celebrate at the end of the year. So this is what it looks like, and this is on one of the handouts, so you can download this and have it, or you can pull it off our website as well. You will see that the topics are the same in each unit for all grade levels. Whether you're in early learning or grade 8, you're going to be making introductions in that first lesson of Unit 1, getting to know your classmates' names. Every class will also be doing their classroom agreements, establishing those rules in the second topic. Obviously, in the health and prevention, there's a little bit of variation as to age appropriateness. But this means the program grows from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and it builds from early learning right up to grade 8. One of the questions we often get asked is, can I just pull out this lesson and use this lesson? That's not the way the Lions Quest school-based programs are designed. It's a really comprehensive program, and you can't just pull out one little piece and expect it to have as much of an impact on those young people. It really is something that we have to start with, building those foundational relationships and then growing and building on the skill set throughout the year and as they age from younger to older. One of the most common questions we'll get asked is, we want to introduce this to our local school. So should we start with the early learning in grade 1, or should we start at grade 7 and 8? Where should we start if we're only going to train a couple of teachers? And my answer to that is always the same. I don't care what grade level it is. I want the teachers who have the best relationships with their kids. That's where the focus and start should be, because that's who is going to have the most success with it. It doesn't mean we can't expand to include all teachers and the full school wide. Certainly that's our goal. But to start the program off, always use those star teachers, those ones who are really engaged and have phenomenal relationships with their kids, which we always hope is every teacher, but in reality we know is most teachers, but maybe not all of them. Skills for Action is a little bit different. Its focus is completely on service learning as a strategy. So this is our secondary school program. It's one package for all of secondary school, as opposed to the individual grade level packages for K to 8 or early learning to 8. And it's about integrating it into an existing subject. So it could be a career subject, and instead of doing a co-op placement in a for-profit workplace, they're going to go out and work in a community agency or a not-for-profit. It could be integrated into a subject. And so if a tech class is learning carpentry skills, they could go and build a gazebo for a park or a senior's home. If it's a science, biology type class, they could go out and clean up a creek bed. So it's taking service as a goal and using it as an educational strategy to help reinforce the lesson content. So we always start with, what's an issue we want to take on? Let's plan and prepare that project. We take action, we reflect and demonstrate and share that with others. We're basically teaching young people to be lions when we think about it in those terms. Service learning, well, it's the core of our secondary program. It's also a key part and one of the units in our elementary as well. And when you have grade 1 and grade 2 kids out there doing service, it's absolutely phenomenal to see the joy that that can bring back. And just so that you know, there's been a message to resend the handouts. It should be one of the tabs on your menu bar. You should see handouts there, and there are 4 of them. So hopefully you can track them down. If not, shoot me an email afterwards and I'll send them out separately. There may be some people on the phone who can't access that. Skills for Action also has a skills bank. And these are standalone. So unlike our K-8 program, these are standalone activities and skills in each of 6 subject areas. So you can see what the subject areas are listed there, and then there'll be a number of different activities within each one of those. We've had Leo clubs use these as part of their program. We've done a lot of work around that. We've also had Lions districts use them as part of their leadership training sessions. So lots of ways you can pull these standalone skills bank activities out to use. And we are exploring ways to make the skills bank available without the training, and so that more people can just pick up the skills bank part of the program and have access to that. So I've talked very quickly about the classroom curriculum and what service learning is about. So I want to just highlight quickly the other 4 elements of our school-based programs before I talk about the rest of our work. Training is required to use our programs in a school or community setting, our school-based resources. It's a 1-day workshop. It can cover JK to 12. We really encourage it to be a JK to 8 workshop. The secondary program is a little different, so we'll work on a unique training for that group, but it could be done all as one. In Saskatchewan, for example, we have a lot of communities where the schools are JK to 12. So there's value in having the full staff together. Each participant will receive the program materials for 1 grade level as part of their training session. And it's also important to know it doesn't have to be just teachers. We love to have school support staff, administrators, parents, school bus drivers, custodians, Lions, everybody involved in that workshop. They may not all need the resources, so that can keep the cost down a little bit. And we do have 2 training options. The most common right now is when we use a national trainer to come into your community or your school to deliver the session. But there's also an option for affiliate trainers, which means they're employees of the school district and they deliver the workshop locally on an ongoing basis. There's a little more flexibility around how that 1-day workshop can happen when the trainer's local. You could do it in a few after-school staff meeting sessions as opposed to a committed 1 full day. School climate is another key component. And we say kids spend a lot of time in school, so it needs to be a feel-good place for them. It also needs to be a feel-good place for the staff as well. So we provide some specific community building strategies, shared classroom agreements, classroom meetings and cooperative group work. Student-led service projects are part of that school climate. And because the students are all taking the same lesson in theory at the same time in a lesson topic, even though the content would be age appropriate, you can do some school-wide activities. So if everybody's working on the classroom guidelines as an example, then perhaps during that time we also come up with some school-wide guidelines. So we can move it from the classroom up to a school-wide approach. We really want to make that school feel like a positive, caring, and safe place for kids to learn. We also need to engage families because parents are the primary educators of our kids. So looking at ways they can be engaged in the homework activities that go home. They could be part of that school climate team. They can certainly attend those workshops. They can participate or lead family meetings, and there are a series of 4 family meetings that go along with the program, 4 at the early learning to grade 5 level and 4 more at the grade 6 to 8 level. So if they've been part of the training team and participated in the workshop, they may even lead those family meetings rather than put more work on the teachers. They can be mentors for service learning projects and certainly serve as classroom and school resources. We really want to build that family-school connection. The goal is to get to some common language. We're not trying to tell parents how to parent or teach parents how to parent, but to reinforce the common language So if kids are learning in the classroom, think and choose as a decision-making model, let's use that same language at home. And just as an aside, for those who've been following our Facebook page and seeing the daily social emotional learning activities that we have been posting for the last month, most of those activities have come from the parent resources, primarily at the early learning grade 1 level from our Lions Quest school-based material. Parent and community involvement are a little bit linked. There's a lot of overlap because, as we say, it takes a village. So there are lots of ways that the community can be engaged as well. So they can be part of that school climate team. They can attend the workshops. They can host, lead, and participate in the parent meetings. Maybe the school doesn't have the best space to hold a parent meeting, but there's a Lions Club hall that would be wonderful to host it. So there are lots of ways to partner. We've had lots of Lions clubs do the, as we call it, meet the creature or meet the teacher barbecue at the beginning of the school year. Why not have the Lions out there selling burgers or donating burgers and hot dogs for the families before they go in and meet their teachers and get connected to the school? Sometimes it's done as a fundraiser with all the funds going back to the school rather than to the Lions Club. Lots of different ways Lions and schools can connect. And that's a key part of including the full village in raising those kids. So switching gears a little bit, we had a lot of people starting to come to our workshops that were coaches, Sunday school teachers, 4-H leaders, Boy Scout leader, guide leaders, that wanted to come to our school-based workshops because they had an engaged group of young people and they wanted to make a difference. And we said, you know what, you maybe don't need a full day of training, and you maybe don't need a package full of material that would let you deliver 30 plus lessons in a school year. Maybe what you need is just the philosophy. So we have developed a half-day evening workshop that really takes the philosophy of our school-based programs and puts it out there so that we're engaging more villagers in our work. The goal of the workshop is to learn how our everyday actions can have an impact. So thinking back to Brody, my simple message to Brody about reminding him that he was a great reading buddy changed that relationship and changed certainly his behavior around our family. It's from shifting our focus from the problems to the strengths. And it's about, as I said, the program is a tool, so it's about relationships. So it's really about that focus on relationships and being deliberate and intentional in our actions. I mentioned it could be a half-day evening. Sometimes we've done full-day workshops as well. And we are exploring virtual workshops. So we're hoping in the next month or so to offer a virtual training session for our community workshop. It will be a new experiment, and hopefully it will be something that we can then extend and bring out to more communities along the way. So you can watch for the news about that coming out. We've had a great, and Brad, I saw you were on the line. I always tell this story because I think it's a great example of using our community workshop as PR for the Lions Club. So in one community, they were reestablishing a Lions Club that was no longer in existence and forming a new club in essence. And so they held a community workshop in order to show people what Lions can do for the community. So it was not only something done as outreach to make a difference for kids, it was also a PR activity to build membership in Lions. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's a great strategy. It's also a great way for us to help you talk about what the school-based programs are about. So if you're a Lions Club or a Lions district that wants to get involved with the school-based programs, but you don't feel confident enough to talk to educators and others about what social emotional learning is, that's a little piece of what we do in the community workshop. So it can serve as a promotional tool for our school-based programs as well. Our model with Lions Quest has been to talk about the 5 things that all kids need, and that's part of our community workshop. They need relationships with caring adults. They need to live, learn, work, and play in safe and caring places. They need an opportunity to provide service to others. So many benefits from developing that sense of both personal and social responsibility. They need healthy habits, so staying away from those negative behaviors. And they need a sense of hope and optimism about the future. And if we, as villagers and as adults in the community, can start to make a difference in those 5 areas by being deliberate with our behavior, then we see that we can actually change children and youth. And if we change children and youth, it changes families and individuals, which changes communities, and it changes societies. In our work with one organization, their young person went away to camp and was involved in a lot of Lions Quest activities as part of that camp experience. And his mom shared a story about him coming home from camp and saying, "My son is a different person as a result of this. And because he's a different person, our family is better and healthier. And because our family is better and healthier, we've changed our relationship and our work within our community, and ultimately society has changed." It's that ripple effect that can be absolutely profound when we are deliberate and strategic with our actions. So what does a community workshop involve? Because it's something that any Lions Club or district can easily do. We look for a hall that can hold about 30 to 40 people. We don't like to do the workshop with less than 15. 25 to 40 is a nice number to have. It can be done with more than that, but we start to lose some of the relationships, and it really becomes a challenge of time, because a lot of login interaction, and the more people you have in the room, the more challenging it is to keep those conversations tight and involve everybody. So, kind of that 30 to 40 is a good number. We can certainly hold it with fewer. And then you invite in those community leaders, parents, coaches, youth worker, media, Lions, obviously educators, provide some light refreshments. In some cases, people have provided a lunch or a dinner, depending on the timing. And the cost is about $2,000 to hold one of those community workshops. And then travel is a bit of we try and merge them together with multiple events to keep the travel costs down. So something we can talk about as to how to make that work. But just as a ballpark, it's about $2,000 to host the workshop. We've also had a lot of other training, and these pictures are both from Fort Mac in a hotel that no longer exists as a result of the fire a number of years ago, and Fort Mac's going through a whole lot more challenges this week with flooding. We have done extensive work in that community and across Alberta, primarily with our 2-day building community capacity training sessions. It's a train the trainer. So we want to walk away and leave people feeling equipped to support our approach in their communities. We provide them with lots of tools and resources, and the evaluations have just been outstanding. We have held a couple of these workshops in Ontario. We have customized this workshop specifically for police services because they serve a unique role in their community. But we have trained, as I said, about 1,200 people now, about 3/4 to 80% of those in Alberta. And we've really started to see a difference that it can make and the ownership that takes place. So it's one of our kind of very effective pieces that has made a difference. And I think that we'll be seeing a demand for more of these in the coming year or two as we move out of the pandemic. We know that kids' social emotional well-being is suffering. Adults' social emotional well-being is suffering right now. We hear a lot about social distancing, but it should be about physical distancing and socially connecting, because we do need that relationship piece. And without that, we will start to see a significant increase in mental distress and challenges around our emotional well-being. So we expect to see this demand for this particular initiative grow. It's not something we will can get to in a virtual model because of the nature of the training. But it is something we will be offering as soon as we are able to. We've done a lot of other consulting and training. Specifically in the story I shared earlier about the young person at camp was from Tim Horton Children's Foundation. All of their camp programs are based on Lions Quest philosophies. So when the young kids go away to their camp experience, they don't just, learn to fish or learn some of those other skills depending on the camp they're at, but they also learn that social emotional well-being piece. We've done work with Children's Aid Society and with foster parents and with youth workers who are working with kids in care. Physical and Health Education Canada has done a lot of work with us as well. That's the organization that supports health education and phys ed in the schools. Big Brothers Big Sisters, a huge initiative with them. We did a lot of training with a group in Toronto to the point that they have now embodied this approach into their service model Canada-wide. So we're on a bit of a pause with training as they start to roll that out to Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations across the country. But we were the foundation behind all of the organizations in doing that. So we'll see some more work coming with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And I know I've already mentioned our work with RCMP and other police services. And we also have been working for the last couple of years with the Yukon Youth Directorate, which is the youth arm of the Yukon government. Any organization that receives funding from the Yukon government for their child and youth programs has participated in our 2-day capacity building training. And we were planning to do another one of those sessions probably in September. I'm not sure when we'll be doing it at this point. Is distribution and have available that support the program. And again, it's one of the handouts is that resource flyer. You can also shop online on our web to see some of those resources. They're things that we've picked up from publishers and other organizations along the way that we think add value and are based on the same philosophy as what we have. And I want to share another story in particular about the Where's Robert kits. Some who've been around for a while know about Where's Robert. It's a grief kit that was developed in connection with 9/11 when that happened. It's a resource with a storybook and a memory journal and a memory box and a box of crayons that we give to children so that when they're dealing with grief, they have something to focus on. So the book talks a little bit about Where's Robert. It was written by a young woman who lost her brother to a tragic accident. And so she actually wrote this book as an adult and pulled the memory kit together as a tool to manage grief. And then the journal, kids can color in pictures, write stories, do whatever they want in the journal, and then put things in the memory box and decorate the memory box as a way of keeping that person close. And so I will share with this group, it's the first time I've shared this information outside the network, but thanks to one of our wonderful Lions who's on the call, made the suggestion that perhaps we might be able to do something for the students in the school in Nova Scotia who lost their teacher. And so we reached out to the Lions in Nova Scotia, and yesterday we shipped 170 Where's Robert kits to Nova Scotia. They will be distributed to all of the students in that school who lost a teacher, as well as to all the children and grandchildren of any of the other victims in the Nova Scotia tragedy. So hats off to the Lions of Nova Scotia for stepping up and doing that. And hats off, Kevin, I'll give you a shout out on the call for throwing the suggestion my way and starting the ball rolling around that. So it will certainly hopefully make a difference for those kids. So it's one of the reasons we do keep those other resources around and actively want to find another way for kids to be supported in that village. So what about the role of the Lions family, and just kind of the last segment that we'll go through before we open it up for any questions. And I think it's important to note that LCIF is an important player in this, as well as our local Canadian Lions, Lioness, and Leos. Lions Clubs International Foundation actually own the rights to the Lions Quest school-based programs worldwide, so we have access to use those in Canada. Every other country, and it's over 100 countries now, have their own adaptation and access to use that. But Lions Clubs International Foundation also provides significant grant support to local initiatives. So for our Lions Quest district chairs have that information. They can apply for grants to support the school-based programs at a district, multiple district level. So lots of pieces that can happen around that area. And most of our districts across Canada have been in a grant at some point in time. We're happy to help with that. So what about at the district level? And I know there are a couple of district chairs on here or other district leaders. It certainly is a great spot to focus the support for a Lions Quest school-based or community workshop is start at that district level. Put one out there, invite some teachers from a variety of school districts or a few schools. At the district level, that's a great spot to start reaching out to school principals, school district administration, trustees, politicians, police, youth workers, whatever. Reach out on a coordinated level at the Lions district / school district level. We always like to see our cabinet members as ambassadors, and we're happy to provide training for those leaders as they're coming into their role. And obviously the LCIF grants happen at a district or a multiple district level, not typically at a club level. So what about a club? Some of you are here as representatives from your Lions Club. Promote to your networks. You're our sales force. You are our marketing department. We have a huge staff of 2 people to cover Lions Quest and all of Canada, plus our great team of trainers who do workshops for us. So we use you as our marketing tools, marketing sales force. You know teachers. They're in your family. They're in your Lions Clubs. They're in your communities. So let them know about Lions Quest. You don't have to be the expert. You can sponsor and or participate in workshops at the club level. So maybe host one in your Lions Hall, maybe host one for your local school. Presenting a Lions Quest fellowship annually at $500 or a Q-Bear fellowship at $100 is a great investment in Lions Quest. We do like to see you budget annually, either for fellowships, Q-Bear fan club memberships, our promotional contest, all of the above. However, you can put a little or a lot of money in your budget annually goes a long way with us. Involving young people in your projects in a meaningful way. So not just asking them to clean up garbage, but providing them leadership roles and real meaningful experience. I always say the expression youth are our future is wrong because youth are our present. They are key leaders and are making an incredible difference in our society. So let's involve and engage them. And support those community efforts that benefit children and youth. Host an annual thank you banquet for our volunteer coaches and youth leaders in the community. Lots of things you can do at a club level. And for everybody, and this doesn't just apply to Lions family, this is everybody. Just say hi to kids. Don't avoid them. Right now, you have to be across the street from them, but you can still wave hi. Learn the names of the kids in your neighborhood. Compliment them often. Teach and learn from youth as volunteers and support those adults. It's about being very deliberate and intentional in our relationships and thinking about taking advantage of all of those moments. We can all do those things. This is a quote that used to hang on my office wall before we moved to virtual offices. It's not up in my home office yet, but likely will be. That never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world, because indeed it is the only thing that ever has. And I think that's so true. Where we see Lions Quest as the most active and most committed, it's because 1 or 2 people have said, we're going to make this happen. And so we start to make it happen that way. From a bigger picture and just my final comments, our strategic priorities, and our board is made up of Lions members from across the country. Fund development, obviously a key goal and important to us at all times. relationships with our key networks, so continuing to build those relationships with ministries of education, RCMP, and other police services, any of those kinds of organizations. Continuing to increase the number of workshops, because that means we're reaching more kids, and offering current and relevant resources, and making sure we do invest in keeping our material current. And as I said, right now, one of our projects is working on taking our community workshop to a virtual workshop, and that certainly is resource intense. So what are our goals for this year? And we're almost at the end of this Lions year. We need about 150,000 in donation revenue, and we're at about 110 now. So in our final 2 months, we need some money to come in to meet our goals. We have exceeded our school-based revenue goal, which is fortunate. Our community revenue goal, so the revenue we bring in from our community workshops, we won't reach because we had a number of workshops canceled as a result of the pandemic. So that means there's a greater demand on our donation revenue. We will be at or under our operating expenses. And as I said, we're a lean and mean organization. We're a national charity operating with 2 staff out of home offices. So our expenses are pretty minimal, and we're pretty lean and mean. So we wanted to hit 15 school-based workshops, 14 community workshops, and 8 extra training days from either custom work or community capacity building ones. We're close, but we're not going to hit that community workshop number due to the cancellations we had this spring. So we'll see what we can do. How can we help you with our lean mean staff of 2? We can provide you with speakers for events and meetings, either myself or we have a great team that we can call on to go out and do that. We have promotional and marketing material. Our Lions Quest chairs all have a toolkit they have access to through a Dropbox that we have out. We can follow up with key contacts, so you don't have to be the expert when you're speaking to a school district person or a principal. We're happy to carry the weight of that if you'd like us to. We don't have to do that. It's an offer we make available to you. We're sending regular emails out and a whole lot more frequently right now because we actually have some time to do it since I'm not out there traveling doing training. We've been getting a lot of emails out. Our website is one of our projects over the next month too, but there are a lot of resources on there. Our Facebook page and Twitter feeds have been offering daily social emotional learning activities for families. Thanks to all of you who have been sharing those widely. And we can help you write those grant applications to Lions Clubs International Foundation to get some financial support for the work at the district and or multiple district level. More than happy to do that. We've got a fairly good template, and Lions Clubs International Foundation loves it when we help out because we know what they're looking for, and they get a fairly consistent format coming into their office, which makes the approval happen a little easier. So happy to work with you on those. I mentioned our Facebook and Twitter pages. Instagram will be coming. We're not quite there yet. And those daily activities to support social emotional well-being. Giving Tuesday, which is typically the Tuesday after Black Friday in November, early December, depending on timing. There is a new Giving Tuesday for this year that will be happening next Tuesday, May the 5th. And on Giving Tuesday, we will be posting and putting out the full collection of our daily activities in one package. And we're actually putting out an additional resource at 3 different grade levels on mindfulness for social emotional well-being for the K-2, grade 3 to 5, and grade 6 to 12 age groups that was developed by our Lions Clubs International Foundation friends and the Lions Quest team there, and we've tweaked it and adapted it a bit for our Canadian audience. So both of those will be going out as our gift on Giving Tuesday, and obviously we'll always be looking for donations at the same time. So you can watch for that. It will be posted in a few days. So just before I open it for any questions that you may have, I would show this, but I'll keep our time down. I can tell the story faster than the video runs. We have wonderful colleagues around the world, and one of the great ways that we have an impact and get the message out is by sharing our stories. And Flora sharing Maria's story is one of the most powerful stories in our library and collection of them. And Flora shares how she was at a conference or a gathering, and she was hearing about the importance of relationships and focusing on strengths and being deliberate and intentional in our interactions with young people, taking advantage of every moment. And she stopped at the grocery store on her way home and was thinking about the messages she had heard and how she could use it with her own children and grandchildren. And she got to the checkout counter and she noticed the young woman bagging her groceries kind of had her head down and wasn't really engaged. So she read her name tag and said, "Hello, Maria, how are you today?" And she got a little head nod. And then she said, "I appreciate the way you're packing my groceries so carefully. And it's great when I get home and my eggs aren't broken and my bread's not smushed," and carried on the interaction. And she got a little bit more of a head nod. And you could tell this was a few years ago. Maria offered to carry her groceries out for her. And so Flora said normally she would have said no, but the store wasn't busy and she kind of felt I'm reaching out to this young person. I'm going to make an attempt here. So they carried on their conversation already all the way out to the car and talked about what subjects she liked in school. Nothing too personal or invasive, but just a casual conversation. And at the end, she really thanked Maria for all her help and assistance and said, "It's been really nice chatting with you." And Maria finally looked up and pushed the hair out of her eyes and said, "No, thank you. Most people don't even notice I'm here." And Flora thought about that long and hard about how if she hadn't been thinking about being deliberate and intentional and reaching out, she probably wouldn't have noticed Maria that day. And it stuck with her. And she repeated the story and shared how simple it was so many times in presentations after that. And she was doing a community presentation, and afterwards, a young woman came up to her and said, "Can I speak with you afterwards?" And she was in a hurry, but said, "Sure, let's walk out to the car together." And so the young woman said, "You don't remember me, but my name's Maria, and I used to work at the grocery store." And Flora instantly had back to her, and she said how she thought about her so many times. And Maria said, "I need to tell you what was going on with me. About a week before I met you in the grocery store and you reached out, I had been raped. And I hadn't told anyone. And I didn't know if anyone would believe me. And you were so nice to me that day that you gave me the strength to go home and tell my parents what had happened. And they did believe me and they got me the help I needed. And without that, I'm not sure I would be here today." So from Flora's perspective, a simple young girl who she probably would have ignored if she hadn't been thinking about her, thinking about being deliberate and intentional, Flora literally saved her life. And we think about how many other people we come in contact with on a daily basis and how our simple and everyday actions may have saved a life and we don't even know it because we haven't had the circle back opportunity that Flora received. So it just reminds us all how important it is to reach out and make a difference. My goal for you is to share the information widely. As I said, you are our marketing people. You don't have to be the experts. You will receive a copy of this recording after the training session is, or after the webinar is over. You'll receive it tomorrow, so share it widely. Reconnect with those Lions Quest teachers. Invest in Lions Quest, whether it be through a fellowship, a fan club, or promotional contest, or budgeting and planning for workshops in your community. There is so much that Lions can do, the Lions family can do to make a difference.